this tutorial we're going to be learning how to crochet a solid granny square. I'm going to show you how to do this to any size that you like, and also how to do it in one colour and in multiple colours. This is an update to an old tutorial on my channel and I hope you find this helpful. Start by making a slip knot using whatever method you prefer. That's how I like to make my slip knots. Then make a starting chain of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Slip stitch in the first chain to make a ring of chains. So I'm slip stitching in there. It doesn't really matter what loops you go into here, as long as it's into that first chain to make a slip stitch. So now this just looks like a ball of yarn, but if I pull it a little bit, you'll see that it's actually a ring of chains with a space at the center where we're going to crochet our first round into. Start by making a chain of 3. 1, 2, 3. That counts as our first double crochet stitch. That's a double crochet in US terms. They're called trebles in the UK. I use US terms in my tutorials. Next, make a double crochet into the center of that ring of chains, so that space there. In there. I'm going to make a double crochet. Next, make another double crochet into the ring. So if we include this starting chain of 3 that we're counting as a double crochet, we've made 3 stitches here. 1, 2, 3. Next, we're going to make a corner space by chaining 2. 1, 2. Now make 3 more double crochets into the ring. 1, 2, 3. Now make another corner space by chaining 2. 1, 2. Now we're going to repeat that 2 more times. So I'm going to do 3 double crochets into the ring. 1, 2, 3. Next, make 2 more chains. 1, 2. Then 3 more double crochets into the ring at the center. 1, 2, 3. Then here, rather than making 2 more chains, we're just going to make 1 chain because we're not changing colours here. If we were changing colours here, we would chain 2 and fasten off like I'll show you later in the video. So what we're going to do next is make a single crochet into the top of this starting chain. So I'm going to put my hook into that chain there, and you can go under just 1 loop here if you prefer. I like going under 2 loops, so I kind of do that. So I've got 2 loops on my hook here and I've gone in there. I'm going to make a single crochet, so yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. So that's round 1 finished, and you might have quite a large hole here. I'll just show you quickly how we get rid of this hole. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my little mini granny square over to the back, and we've got our yarn tail here from when we did our chain ring. What I'm going to do is I'm going to thread that onto a needle, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to run my needle underneath through all the bottom of all of the stitches of that round we've just done. So my needle's going to go underneath those loops there, and I'm going to go all the way around. So underneath the loops, like that. Underneath the loops. and again underneath the loops. And then we should be able to pull our yarn tail here, and that will close up that hole at the centre of our granny square to give us a neat finish like the squares I showed you at the start of the video. You can then go ahead and weave your tail in now, but I'll show you how we do that at the end of the video. So I'm just going to take my needle off that yarn tail now so we can continue on. I just prefer that to already have been done before I move on to round 2. To start round 2, make 3 chains. 1, 2, 3. That counts as your first double crochet stitch. Next, work a double crochet into the corner space. We're going to be working over the top of that single crochet that we're counting as our second corner chain. So I'm going to do a double crochet in that space there. So if you've watched my previous solid granny square tutorial, my previous preference here was to do another double crochet stitch into the chain 2 space and then skip the first stitch after the corner. I've actually changed my mind on my preferences now. That's my prerogative as a crocheter. I can pick and choose what techniques I prefer as I go. So what I prefer to do now is actually work into the top of that stitch rather than back into the chain 2 space. So that's why I decided to make this video, is because that is kind of like my update as well as the colour changes to this pattern. So we're going to go ahead and work a double crochet into the top of this starting chain. So we're going to be making the double crochet in the same space we did that single crochet there. So I'm going in there to make my double crochet, gone in there. And then we're going to make a double crochet into the top of the next 2 stitches. If you've not worked into the top of stitches before, we put our hook in there, that part of the stitch there, underneath those 2 loops at the top of the stitch here that look a bit like a chain. Some people say that that's like the V shape at the top of the stitch. So I'm going to do my double crochet there, and then I'm going to repeat that and do a double crochet into the next stitch. So my hook's going in there underneath the 2 loops at the top of the stitch. So we're now at a corner space, and into our corner spaces we work a corner group. For the solid granny squares, our corner groups are always the same. So I'm going to work 2 double crochets, 1, 2, chain 2 to make a corner, then 2 more double crochets back into the same corner space, 1, 2. And because I've changed my mind about my granny square corners, I'm now going to work my next stitch into the top of this first stitch. Now sometimes it can be quite difficult to find the top of this stitch because these stitches here might be covering it, and this is called a hidden stitch. So if I grab those stitches I've just made and pull them over, that reveals the 2 loops at the top of the stitch where I need to put my hook. So I'm going in there. Then a double crochet into the next stitch, and a double crochet into the next stitch. So now we're going to repeat this around. When we get to a corner space, we work 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets, then along the side of the square we work a double crochet into the tops of each of those 3 stitches. So repeat those steps around until you're almost at this final corner. Your square is almost finished. I'll meet you here and I'll show you what's different in this final corner. So I've continued working around my square and I've just done a double crochet into the 3 stitches along this side of the square here, and I'm almost back at the start of the round. We've already got 2 double crochets here in this corner space, so we need to finish off this corner group. So work 2 double crochets into that corner space, 1, 2, then work 1 chain and a single crochet in the top of this starting chain just like we did at the end of round 1. So my single crochet is going in there. So that's round 2 finished, so let's move on to round 3. So for round 3 I'm going to explain the formula that we work for every round as our square gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So if we have a look at our square, each round has more and more and more stitches along the side of the square, but our corner groups remain the same. So to start round 3, chain 3, that counts as our first double crochet stitch, then work a double crochet back into the corner space. So now we're going to work a double crochet into each stitch across until we reach a corner space. As your square gets bigger and bigger and bigger, you'll have more and more stitches here. Don't forget that our first stitch needs to be in the top of this starting chain here. So I'm putting my hook in the same space as that single crochet there. So I'm going in there to make my first double. Then I'm going to double crochet in each stitch across until I get to a corner. Then in the corner space we work 2 double crochets, 1, 2, chain 2, then 2 more double crochets back into the same space. And then we repeat that all the way around the square, working a double crochet into each stitch across, then a corner group, all the way around until we're almost at the end of the square. Then I'll meet you round here and I'll show you how we fasten off a colour and also how we change colours for the next round. In that final corner space we need to finish off our corner group like in round 2, so 2 double crochets in that corner space. And now I'm going to show you how we change colour. So when we're changing colours, we are not going to do our chain 1 single crochet. Instead, we're going to work 2 chains, and then I'm going to finish off with a slip stitch, but feel free to do an invisible join here if you want to. I'll be showing you that after I've shown you the colour change. But for now, I'm just going to do a slip stitch. So I'm going to go into the top of that chain there to make a slip stitch. And then I'm going to pull that slip stitch really tight and then snip my yarn tail. Then use my crochet hook to pull that tail through that slip stitch, give it another pull to make sure it's nice and tight. So now I'll show you how to change colours. To join our next colour, I recommend joining it to a different corner space than the one we just fastened off, because that gives us more space when it comes to weaving ends in. So put your hook into the corner space, lay your yarn over the top of your crochet hook and pull up a loop. Now if we were just going to go ahead and crochet here, this loop likes to work itself loose over time before we come back to weave our ends in. So I like to do an extra step here to give a bit more friction on that yarn tail so that it doesn't come loose. So to do that, I take my yarn tail, I put it over the top of my crochet hook, then I tuck it down here and grab it with my finger just to hold it in place. You can see it's looped over the top of my crochet hook here. When we make our starting chain for the next round, that yarn end is going to be trapped in the chain and there's a bit of extra friction there to hold it in place until we can come back and properly secure in our tail. So now we're just actually going to do the same as round 3, so chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to continue on the same as we did in round 3, so a double crochet back into the chain 2 space, double crochet in each stitch across, then our corner group all the way around. I'll meet you back here and I'll show you how we do an invisible join and how we weave our ends in. So I'm almost at the end of the round. I'm going to finish off by doing 2 chains. Now at the end of the last round I showed you how to finish off a square with a slip stitch. Now I'm going to show you how to get a seamless finish by using something called an invisible join. So snip your yarn tail with an end long enough to weave in. Then use your crochet hook to pull that end through the second chain. Thread the yarn tail onto a large yarn needle. I usually prefer ones with sharp points because it means my end will be more secure when I weave my end in, but I can't find one, so we're working with a blunt tip needle today. So to do the invisible join, put your needle underneath both of the loops at the top of the stitch next to our starting chain. So here's our starting chain, here's the stitch next to it. I'm putting my hook in, not my hook, sorry, my needle, underneath both of those loops there. And then I'm going to pull it through. And I'm not going to pull this really, really tight. We want just enough tension so that that loop there that we've just created matches all the ones next to it. So the front loop of all of these stitches here, it's about the same length. Then we're going to put our needle through the back loop only of that second chain there. So I'm going in there. Again, I'm not going to pull this really tightly. I'm going to pull it so it's got just about the same amount of tension and the same length as the loops, all these back loops of the stitches here. So as you can see, the invisible join gives us a seamless finish around the top of our granny squares. Not only does this give a more professional finish to our finished pieces, it also makes them way easier to join. I'm now going to show you how we secure our yarn ends by weaving them in. So we'll start with this end because it's already on my needle. So I'm going to turn my square over to the back. Then I'm going to work my needle down the back of the starting chain there. So I like to go under, I potentially didn't choose the best colour yarn to show this. I like to go under that loop there and then that loop there like that to get to the base of the stitch. Then I'm going to weave my tail back and forth 3 times underneath the bottoms of all of these stitches here. So I'm going to take my needle, I'm going to thread it underneath those bottoms there, then I'm going to scoop up some more stitches. So hopefully you can see my needle's going under and picking up of each stitch those 2 loops there like that. I'm going to go under a few. I usually like to go about an inch, inch and a half. If I was doing a sharper needle, I'd be tempted to do less than that, but because our ends end up more secure with a sharp needle because it splits the yarn there. And again, I'm not pulling this really tight. If we pull this really tight, it will make our invisible join really tight, and it can also pull that stitch down so that our square doesn't have a straight side. So again, we just need just the right amount of tension to get the yarn along there. Then we're going to go back in the opposite direction. So I'm going to pick up a loop. I like to pick up that loop there, but it doesn't really matter. Pick up a loop there just to anchor it. Then I'm going to go back underneath just where I did the stitches before, but in the opposite direction. So under those stitches there. Then I'm going to pull my needle through like that, and again I'm just pulling it just enough to get enough tension to get the yarn laid flat there. Then I'm going to go back in that direction across the same area for a 3rd time, and this 3rd time of doing it is what really secures it, especially if we have a sharp needle. So I've picked up a loop there, and I'm going to go back under those. I think it was about six stitches there. Go back under those there. And that properly secures that ending after our invisible join over here. So I can now snip this yarn tail and go ahead and repeat those steps for our other ends, but I want at the centre I do slightly differently because I like to reinforce the centre of my granny squares because that's where they're most likely to come apart. So I'll show you how I do that next. So I'm going to thread that yarn onto my tapestry needle, and if you remember all the way back at the end of round 1, we already wove it underneath all of these stitches once just to pull the center of this square tight. So to make sure that doesn't come open, I'm going to go back in the opposite direction. So I can see that my yarn has come underneath this loop here. That's the last loop I came under. So I'm going to skip that loop and go underneath all of those stitches all the way back around. So I'm going to go around there and then all the way around there. Then sometimes I will go back and do that a third time if my yarn is particularly thin or it's one that snaps easy. This is a really strong merino wool yarn, so I know that that's not going to be a problem. So I might just snip my yarn tail here, or I could potentially, if I'm worried about it coming loose, work it up the back of this stitch here. So I'm just going to pick up a couple of these loops there like that. And then I can run it under a few stitches here. I can go back and forth a couple of times to make it extra secure if I want to before snipping it. So that's how you crochet a solid granny square with lots and lots of tips along the way. If you'd like to have a look at the rest of my granny square tutorials, I've got loads of them all on this playlist here, and I will see you again next week for another video.